Hey, this is Derek D-Train He2. Tonight's episode is brought to you by
KingTutGraphics.com. Are you looking for a better way to promote your business? Have you ever thought about a new sign, window film, clear coat, or even wrapping your vehicle? Think about it. All the time you spend in your car driving around Raleigh, North Carolina, a vehicle wrap can be working right alongside you. A clear branding strategy can make the difference between your next call or not. If you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, check them out at KingTutGraphics.com. Your satisfaction with their products and service is guaranteed. So go online to KingTutGraphics.com and check them out. Get a free quote and get started with KingTutGraphics.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Blue Line Hockey Club, folks. We got another exciting episode tonight. We're number 80 tonight, folks. That's right, number 80. So you got to check out all our other episodes, but we have 80 episodes now out there. So make sure you're checking them all out. And we have the usual suspects sitting in with us tonight. We have our producer, the guy that makes it all happen, Patrick Uncle Lardy Sullivan. What's up, Patrick?
Aloha.
And the local nerd on staff, our IT guy, Robbie Pete Peters. What's up, Pete?
Hey, your mama now.
And the all-around sports guru, the guy that we go to for all of our sports news, Derek D-Train He2. What's up, D-Train?
What's up, sweeto?
And your host of the Blue Line Hockey Club tonight, Mark the Doctor Morley.
Oh, doctor.
And tonight's episode presented by Branded Bills, brandedbills.com. If you haven't checked them out, some of the coolest hats on the market, and then we just landed a big sponsorship with them, so check them out. And tonight we have a very special guest that we're interviewing tonight. We have a former NHL hockey player, played 9 seasons in the NHL, Ryan Vandenbussche, who played with the Rangers, the Penguins, a long stint with the Blackhawks, and known for being an enforcer in the NHL and mucking it up with some of the tough guys throughout the league in his career. And he's now the founder and creator of New Leaf Canada. And we're also going to get into a little bit of that with him. So I'd like to introduce Ryan. How are you tonight?
Pretty good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Blue Line Hockey Club, man. Appreciate you coming on tonight. And, it's a pleasure to get talking to some of the NHL alumni. And, you had a pretty extensive career dating back all the way to the Cornwall Royals, I believe is the name of the team, OHL. And that's I actually just lived in Messina, New York. We're from up there, just across the bridge from where you were playing there, so we know exactly where your pro career started.
Well, I played in Messina as well.
Messina Americans, yeah.
Yeah, so you know the North Country, it's already cold as shit up there, and hockey has started and it's already rolling up there. So just getting in a little bit of your career and before we get into New Leaf, and just to explain to us a little bit maybe how you found your role in the NHL, maybe as a tough guy or an enforcer, or that role. Did that develop early in your career, or is that something that came out later?
Well, define early in your career, like junior career, junior B, minor hockey. I was like any other kid that loved to play hockey. I just had a passion to play and loved it. Wanted to score goals like any other kid. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way when I turned pro. I couldn't score goals like I used to in minor hockey, so you kind of have to reinvent yourself. I was always, a decent skater, a good forechecker, and I finished my checks. And so, come junior B, when I was 16 years old, because I finished my checks, and a lot of the older guys didn't like that. They came after me, and I didn't back down. So I guess I started honing in on my skills as a 16-year-old, playing junior B and junior C, and then that got me drafted to the Cornwall Royals in the 14th round. And as I'm driving to Cornwall with my dad, he says, "Ryan, you're a 14th round draft pick. You're going to be probably gone in 2 days unless you do something on the ice and get noticed in a good way. I was there to play your physical." So I went out there and hear that Owen Nolan got drafted first overall by the Quebec Nordiques. So he was at Cornwall Royal. So he comes back to Cornwall camp, getting ready for his Quebec camp beforehand, and I got a good body check on him. So I knocked him out. He missed three months that year. It was a training camp in Quebec. So I kind of got noticed that way, and then a team tough guy comes after me. I didn't really realize I could fight like that well until I just started playing. Started playing a little more junior A. Guys came after me for the way I played. Like I said, I didn't back down, so that's kind of how it all started.
Nice.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that role develops. We've talked to a couple of different enforcers on our show that we've had on, and some of the guys say it's not really something that I enjoyed doing, but it was a role that I embraced, and I knew I had to go out there and fight once in a while, and that was part of my role on the team. And what was your take on that? Was that something that you didn't really enjoy doing, or you didn't mind doing it? Or what was that like?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't mind. I was you're a little young and dumb, and you don't really realize the consequences. So it was something I grew up fighting. To be honest with you, I had an older brother that was 16 months older than me, and we had our fair share of fisticuffs growing up as young kids. And my dad would separate us, make us put on the boxing gloves, and he said, "The winner of this fight takes me on." So I was introduced to the fisticuffs quite early, and as I got older, you realize, whoa, this is really tough on your body and it hurts. So you get a little bit more timid, but by then you're making some decent money, and I looked at the physicality of the game as something that I could control for the most part. Like I didn't psych myself out. People say, well, how did you sleep in the afternoons when you knew you had to battle against guys like George Rock or Steve Grimston and Lee Belak and those types of guys? And the way I looked at it was, I couldn't lose because I'm not a big guy. I'm about 5'11", 3/4 to be exact, and 200 pounds soaking wet. So anyone that I was strapped with was much bigger than me. So I didn't put any pressure on myself. So I fought a guy that was bigger than me and lost. Well, I was supposed to lose. If I tied, then I consider myself a win because they were much bigger than me. And if I won, well, I looked like a hero. So that's how I kind of looked at it and how I approached the game, every game.
Ryan, a lot of talk in the NHL is, they're getting away from fighting, a lot of, just hugging in front of the net. Do you think fighting will ever go away from hockey? And what do you think? It should stay or should it go? Or I know you've had a few concussions, and that's big with you right now. But what's your stance on fighting in the NHL?
Well, I think there's a time and a place for it. I mean, stage fighting is there's no use for that. I think that there is a role. I think there should always be a role. You get guys that are taking liberties on smaller players and running around. Well, they should have to answer the bell to that.
Definitely.
Yeah. So talking about concussion. I got most of my concussions not from fighting. It was from just body contact, blindsided hits, or even in practice. I had some of my worst concussions in practice. So I must have skated with my head down or something doing counter drills. I think, like I said, it's not in place, but it is part of the game, and that's what makes it such a beautiful game because there's so many different skills of the game. There's you got your speed, you got your finesse, you got your physicality. So I think I'd hate to see it go completely, but I can understand why it would.
Who was one of the guys that you had to, when you were in the show and you had to line up against, or you knew they were in the locker room, like that guy you're like, fucking A, I know he's going to want to fight me. Who was that guy? Did you have one of those guys?
Well, yeah, in junior, it was probably anytime we were playing against North Bay, Dennis Bobby was playing that team. So I always knew that there was going to be a good tussle with him. Like, it seemed like every time we played against each other, we were fighting each other. Choose your weapon in the NHL because every team had a pretty solid tough guy. So
Yeah.
Guys like I've been over 300 bare knuckle on ice fights.
Holy shit!
Broken 3 times, and and it was by guys like Grimston and Belak and the Rocks. So not just because I broke my nose, but those were little tough afternoon naps before the game. So, so going into Edmonton, and maybe getting a couple shifts in the first period, and then the second period you're not really playing that much, and then all of a sudden you're down by 3-4 goals, and you got to go out on the ice, and you got to do something, change the momentum of the game, and that was always tough going out there cold and having to do battle with guys like that.
Yeah, I did see one of your fights with Grimacin online, and man, he got you like 3 or 4 times in the side of the head, and I was like, how is this guy not going down right now? I mean, that's like the stuff that you don't see as much anymore. Like they don't see the full out fights, and it's more of a hug fest and stuff like that. But there were some. I mean, I don't know if it's memorable for you, but I mean, a lot of the stuff you see online is the Nick Kiprios fight, I guess. Where he was knocked out.
He wouldn't go down, right? The refs asked him to go if he wanted them to break it up, but he said no, and Ryan just knocked him.
Yeah. Well, I just before the ref came in, I cut him over the eye. That's where the blood came from when he hit the ground. It wasn't a nose or nothing like that. But yeah, no, that's he was at near the tail end of his career. I was young and hungry at the beginning of my career, and I was in that role too at the end of my career, getting sent down to the minors during the lockout year, during the 04-05 season. Whereas, the general manager of Pittsburgh asked me to go down and work with the younger guys, and I was like, you'd throw me to a pack of wolves, right? So I not only went down there and played a regular shift and got some power play and got some penalty killing time, I also got a lot of scraps because people came after me all the time because I came from the NHL. So I was like a measuring stick. So. Yeah, no, that was, and then you're playing 3 games in 3 nights in the minors too, and with a 6-hour bus trip in between the first and last game. So it was a grind. There's no doubt about that. And the always hungry league, I call it, the AHL.
Yeah, everyone wants to get noticed, so they see you coming down. They're all just wanting to fight you. So every single fucking shift.
Yeah, that's just stupid to say no half the time. So I ended up obliging most of them, and it kind of hurt me in the end. I created serious injuries on my neck that year, and it kind of took that into the following season, and I ended up retiring because of it. So yeah, no, it was it's not an easy game, but I had a great time.
Yeah. So what kind of lasting effects do you have from that kind of stuff, Ryan? I mean, is it is stuff lingering to this day, or what?
I'm very conscious of what I put into my body and how I treat myself. I treat my body a hell of a lot better now that I've done hockey than I did when I was playing hockey, to be honest with you. So I don't know, this whole ass backwards for me. I wish I knew what I knew now that I didn't know back then. So, no, I think for the most part, just some chronic pain and sleeplessness is my biggest issue. And, that's, I used to be an 8-hour sleep guy. Now I'm 3 to 5. So, it's a little different.
Yeah, for sure. We had Riley Cote on the show a little while back, and I think he said the exact same thing you just said is about he's very conscious about what he puts in his body now, and he's in the CBD world, and if you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, as far as maybe helping with some of the pain ailments that you have, from your career with New Leaf Canada. And just fill the listeners in about that business that you've created.
Yeah, so I retired from the game after 14 years in January 2007. And in 2009, I was introduced to cannabis for medical purposes. Throughout my career, I had 12 surgeries, north of 20 concussions, and many broken bones along the way. So I was pretty battered and beaten when I left the game, and about 5 years prior to my retirement, at least 5, 6, 7 years before my retirement, the prescription opiates were quite heavy into my system because that's what we were given. That was the norm back then. Percocet, Vicodin, Oxycontin, Ambien, sleep at night, anti-inflammatories right after the game. They give you anti-inflammatories. You go out there and go see food first and then take it. Well, of course, we don't do that always. they go out and drink first. So now they got food in the dressing room right after the game. So after, getting somewhat dependent on all that, a couple after retirement, like I said, post hockey retirement in 2009, I was introduced to cannabis for medical purposes by a friend, and I was like, what are you talking about? I just looked at it. I didn't know there's any healing properties in cannabis, so I started looking into it, doing my own research and due diligence. So I realized that I can apply for my own license. And so I got in 2010. I was able to grow my own plants. Well, of course, I didn't know how to grow, so I had to find a grower to grow for me. And once we got this up and running and going, I started trying this medicine as opposed to the painkillers. And after a couple of years, I transitioned completely off the opioids, and I have cannabis, thanks for that, 100%. So back in 2013, I applied to be an LP. I wanted to create medicine in the world. And I started a company called New Deep Canada Inc. And we just built our 32,000 square foot facility. We're waiting just for our attestation video to get back. We have our cultivation license, and I got my hemp license last May. So we grew a hemp last year, and we're building that section of the business too. So we'll be able to grow outdoor hemp and indoor cannabis and make the perfect medicine for what got me into this space was sleeplessness and chronic pain. And there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with chronic pain, whether you're an athlete, a former athlete, or current one, or just a regular person that maybe has been in a car accident or slipped and fell. There's a lot of people out there that are not that are dealing with chronic pain. So this is a more sustainable, natural alternative that has really helped me.
Yeah, it seems like obviously in Canada being legal now, it's really been researched to see how this can be used. Obviously, the medical marijuana thing came first, and a lot of people have seen. I actually have an uncle who has MS that uses it for his pain in his legs and stuff like that, and he's been self-medicating for years, and been judged for it, I would think, by people like he's a pothead or whatever it might be, but he sees it as something that helps him relieve pain every day.
Well, there's such a stigma attached. It's kind of getting normalized right now, but we got to keep on trying to normalize it and get people talking about it, because it really is a better natural alternative. Now you look at alcohol, what that does, it's a dehydrant and a depressant, and it may make you feel good while you're drinking it, but it's going to really hurt you the next day, as we all know. And don't get me wrong, I like my drink a while too, but I certainly have cut down on my drinking because I just can't. It just hurts me too much the next day. So
next 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. So and then our company teamed up with Athletes for Care. So our New Deep Canada was a founding sponsor to bring Athletes for Care into Canada. So we've got about 200 athletes registered under Athletes for Care, and it's just not hockey, it's MMA, football, basketball, baseball, you name it. And so we're creating one voice to promote, advocate alternative medicine such as hemp and cannabis, and continue to do research and development with our former players and current ones, and to share what we know to the rest of the world. So in a greater hopes of normalizing this type of medicine.
So Ryan, are you just a grower, or do you process the hemp too? I know in the United States here, there's a lot of growers, but there's not enough processors. Are you processing the hemp too?
That's a good question. Being kind of late in the game, like with regards to becoming an LP, it allowed us to be able to pivot a couple different times. So to answer your question, yes, we're going to be a fully integrated, vertically integrated company where we grow it and we process it, package it, and sell it. So that's kind of where we're at. So yeah, we're just actually looking at extraction machines right now.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well,
Nice.
Pete, I know. Go ahead, Pat.
No, I was just going to say we'll get back to New Leaf. I was just wanted to get back to a little more hockey talk. And Ryan, you got to play with some top dogs. I know you got to play with
was it Messier, Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Crosby. Can you talk a little bit about that, playing with the some of the best in the in the NHL?
Yeah. No, I'll never forget it. It's a dream come true. When I was when I was 8 years old or so, Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier broke into the league. So that was in like 78, 79. And, fast forward 15 years later, and here I am. I'll never forget my first game in Buffalo. The day of the game, we had a pregame meal. I was walking into the restaurant, and there's Gretzky sitting there, and he waved me over, and so I had breakfast with him. And then
Wow.
I'm on the ice, and I'll never forget sitting on the bench and looking to my left, and there's Messier, and to my right is Wayne Gretzky, and I'm like, what the heck? This is ahead of me. I was 7 years old in the league. So it's pretty cool to be able to play with, my boyhood idols that I totally looked up to. And then, then I was traded to the Chicago Blackhawks, and, I was a big fan of Bob Probert. I got to play with him for 7 years, and I was roommates with him for 4 of those years. So I got to know him quite well. And then my last year in the league, with Pittsburgh Penguins, and the lockout year was a wash. I went down to Wilkes-Barre, and then the following year, the Pittsburgh Penguins won the lottery and was able to draft Sidney Crosby first overall. So that prompted to get Mario Lemieux out of retirement. So I was able to play with Sidney Crosby and Mario Lemieux. So that's kind of neat.
Wow. Do you play with Jeremy Roenick in Chicago?
No, I just missed him. I was traded to Chicago in the spring of '98. He was already gone. Yeah.
I heard some good stories about him. He was just a big gambler and liked to play a lot of pranks on his teammates. So I didn't know if you played with him.
Yeah, no, there's a few gamblers out there. I'll never forget sitting on the plane in New York and watching the high rollers gamble in front of me, and I never learned to play blackjack or not poker, because these guys had pots of like ridiculous amounts of money, and they're more than I'd make in a year. So, anyways, it's an interesting experience, and something that I'll never forget.
Right. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, do you pay much attention to the game now that you're out of it? What do you think of today's NHL?
I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me to watch it now. I love it. Like when I sit down, I just fast games, amazingly fast. But I don't watch it that often because I have 2 kids that are playing fairly competitive hockey right now. So, and it's a decent drive to get them. So, 5-6 nights of the week, I'm on the road. Being a cab driver, being a dad, running my kids around. And when I get home, I'm like, I either got work to do or I want to go to bed. So, yeah, I don't watch a lot of hockey, to be honest with you now. I do watch a lot for the kids, not NHL.
Yeah. For all the listeners out there, Ryan's actually driving an hour from hockey practice tonight. So awesome, Dad. But Ryan, tell us. I'm always fascinated with the rookie parties. Did you guys have rookie parties back then? And I know there's usually like a limit. Each rookie has to spend like $5-10 grand. What was it like back when you played? And did you have one?
Yeah. So my first year pro at St. John's, Newfoundland, Toronto farm team. We had a rookie party there, and we all had to kiss a Todd, get screeched in and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty neat. And do a little speech in front of all the veterans, and do a shot. And then for another years, I'm with the Rangers, and I was called up. I think I played like 10 games at a time. So I happened to be with the team when they were doing the rookie party. So I had an option to either, just get the rookie party over with now or wait till next year, because I was just called up, right? And it's not cheap to go up to dinner with, you're taking the whole team out. And we went to this, so I decided, I want to get this out of the way, get it done now, because there's actually, I think, 4 or 5 rookies on the team at that point in time. So I'm like, yeah, probably going to keep her now. You never know, next year might only be 2 rookies, right? So we went to a restaurant called The Forge in Florida, Miami, and took the team out, and it was, it was a ridiculous table with me And I remember, oh my God, like a big ticket item here. So, but Gretzky actually he took care of most of that bill. Where I think it only cost us a couple of $2,500 a piece. We chipped in, and then he took care of the rest. So great older veterans on that team, and took care of the younger guys for sure.
Nice.
That's good. That's good to hear the great one taking care of the young guys, man. You don't hear stuff, So it's
Awesome.
true character.
Awesome. Yeah, good old Brantford boy, Brantford, Ontario boy. You like to have a couple beers like anybody else, having a good time.
And where are you from, Ryan, again?
A half hour south of Brantford. So Delhi is the town that I grew up in. So Norfolk County is the municipality. So yeah.
Nice.
90 miles southwest of Toronto on the North Shore of Lake Erie.
Oh, okay. Cold.
Have you ever heard of Port Dover?
What's that?
Have you ever heard of Port Dover?
No.
Okay. Where are you guys from? Where's this based out of?
So pretty much Messina, New York, Potsdam, Canton, St. Lawrence, Clarkson University.
Oh, you're on that way. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we're all born and raised. We all played hockey there, won some state championships. A couple of us played junior Bs over in Canada. But we're all over now. We're in Florida, North Carolina. But we're up there, up north in the hockey country. That's where our passion came from with hockey.
Tundra.
Well, Messina's I remember that place because when I was in Cornwall, my first year, sometimes they sent me down to the team that played with the junior B team, the Messina American. I think it's Tier 2 Junior A, as they called it. And so I used to hang out with lots of natives, actually, would bring me across the border. And we'd go over to see them and hang out with them there and sit around a table and have a good time. It was fun.
Yeah, a lot of good cannabis from those native folks right there too.
Yeah, sure.
They got a lot of good cannabis there, that's for sure. So let's get before we let you go, just get back to New Leaf Canada. Is that something that people in Canada can find retail, or is it you guys like a wholesale company that is distributing to dispensaries, or how's that work?
Yeah, well, that's the plan. Is we're going to have our own dispensary, but we're going to have our own retail shop out of this site where my farm is. So we have a 64-acre farm. We'll be growing about 40 acres of outdoor hemp for 2020, and then we'll do indoor cannabis and processing, and then from there, dispensary, we can do retail dispensary, but nothing is up and running yet because we're just waiting for our cultivation license. And then in Jamaica, we're also in Jamaica. New Leaf Canada is New Leaf Jamaica as well, where we've got a processing facility, we've got a retail outlet already there, we've got 2 farms, and we're looking at negotiating a deal with a company over there to grow a couple thousand acres of hemp in Jamaica, and that's our processing facility, and be getting ready for the export rules so we can ship it out to the countries that are allowing imports of cannabis and hemp.
You looking for any Americans to go over there in Jamaica and work or manage a shop?
Test.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, we'll need a team. We're able to use a lot of the locals, and if we're in Jamaica, another country, we partner with the local Jamaican there. And the game plan there is to uplift the community that we're in and create jobs for the locals. And, it's a third world country, as you're aware of. And I think that we're going to go there and make a footprint of growing their ganja along with them. That we want to do good things and uplift their community because in the end that'll be our best security as well.
Yeah, Robbie, you've been doing a lot of research yourself. Just pro bono, huh?
Yeah, hey, I'd do it for free.
Yeah, you got my number, Ryan. If you need help over there, you can get me over so we can go.
Sounds good. Good on.
So do you have a website, Ryan? The New Leaf have a website people can check out?
We're just building it now. It's going to be called newleafcan.com, newleafcan.com. And it's just the holding position right now, but we'll be placing that right shortly. We'll be ready to go for the first quarter of 2020.
Perfect.
Let us know. We'll put it up on the website. And thanks for coming on, Ryan.
Oh, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me. And you guys enjoy the night. Yeah,
and if you want some people to test your samples, let us know. We can do that too here live on the podcast.
Absolutely. No feedback for sure.
Yeah, we just gotta get a couple more states to legalize it here. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah, well, is Trump gonna legalize it, or what's gonna happen?
I don't know. Who knows?
I doubt it.
It's coming. It's coming. Hey Ryan, been a pleasure. It's always good to talk to some NHL guys on the Blue Line Hockey Club, and thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it, and enjoy your night and get home safe.
Drive safe, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good night. Cheers,
man. Take care.
Bye.
All right, boys. That interview with Ryan Vandenbussche, brought to you by Brandon Bills. What a great guy. Another NHL guy going into the cannabis world. Different than Riley's company, but using that cannabis to help people with their ailments and their pain. And obviously, he touched on it a little bit, where some of these athletes, when they get these major injuries, are pushed towards opiates, and especially back in his day, and get dependent on it, and addicted. So this is kind of a good alternative for those people that need to medicate with something not so addictive and not so bad for your body, and that you don't become dependent on, like an opiate. So a great thing for people that may have been addicted to that kind of stuff in the past, and another alternative, something a little bit more safe. And it's a controversial thing with people still in the United States, not so much in Canada anymore, but people are starting to open their eyes and realize that it can be used for good things. So I'm glad to see that he's doing good things with New Leaf Canada, and we wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, I mean, he even said, sorry, Derek, that and it's currently, a couple NHL guys I speak to, they hand those pills out like they're fucking chiclets, So and back when Ryan was playing, that's when fights were fights. They fucking fought. It wasn't a hug and put the glove in your face.
Is the ref coming? Is the ref coming?
Yeah.
Where the fuck's the zebras?
They hug each other and wait for the refs to come in and break it up. These guys fucking fought until blood was pouring out of their fucking face, MMA style. So they were handing these out, like Ryan said, and there's better alternatives. And
look, I've shared my story. I'm not concerned about it. It's helped me get away from alcohol and hard drugs myself. What I heard from him was, it's no longer just about sports, guys. If you have trauma anywhere, and for a wide range of ailments right now, this is a viable solution to the opioids that they're passing out. As soon as you take a handful or get through your first bottle, you're technically probably hooked on it.
Yeah. Add a couple of cold ones on top of it.
And you don't, right. And we all know about that experience. It leads to blacked out nights and who knows fucking what. But, look, with marijuana, it's just not the same. I don't care what anybody says. It is an absolutely a viable solution to, anything compound made in a lab. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the stigma is wearing off too. That's the big thing.
Is.
Yeah, that's the big thing that they have to get over the hump with these. Our country, especially other countries are ahead of the curve on this kind of stuff. But you got to get, the stigma of this is just kind of stupid. I mean, opioids. I've witnessed it firsthand. I have a family member that battled addiction with opioids, and it's just it's awful, man. What it does. I mean, it can take a person that is so highly successful, intelligent, and suck everything out of them. You know what I mean? And
strip
the life right out of them. I mean, so if you have an alternative like marijuana, cannabis, CBD, whatever it is that can, like Rob said, not be produced in some lab somewhere and some big pharma making big money off of it, not caring a damn about what it does to the public.
The side effects are longer than the reasons you're taking it. There's something fucking wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it's good stuff, I think, and I think as we move forward here over the next couple of years, you're going to see it legalized probably all across this country, I would think, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I had been sent you guys numerous texts on marijuana stocks. Canopy Growth is a big one in Canada. It's just a good business to keep an eye out, because eventually, like Derek said, the stigma is going to be over, and it's just going to be the norm. It's going to be.
I can't wait, because my backyard is going to be full.
Yeah, and that's another thing, guys. Like, we didn't realize, like, kind of in the hockey world, we've been ahead of the game, but we were way ahead of the game in the marijuana world. We've been using this for our pains for 25 years. So you got shit on us.
We also used alcohol the same way. We didn't realize it, but you go and you socialize. And when your entire fucking shoulder from neck to hip is black and blue, 5, 6, 10 beers, and you're finally walking straight again.
Yeah.
And after 10 beers, 10 beers wasn't enough. It was bring on the 8 balls of fucking hookers and have a good time. So
snorting Molly off someone's ass.
Yeah. So we were definitely ahead of our game, and one thing that we are also ahead of our game. And we're going to get into a little bit of that, because we like to stay up on that and be ahead of everybody else on our hockey news on the Blue Line Hockey Club. So tonight's episode, like we've been talking about, everything is brought to you by Branded Bills tonight. And if you haven't checked out their lids, get to brandedbills.com, because they are legit. And they send us some pretty sweet hats. I've got one on right now. So if you're on YouTube watching our show, you'll be able to see that hat. And we've got a couple different styles, so we'll have those out on our YouTube that you'll be able to see too. So check out brandedbills.com. All right, boys, let's get into some hockey news. It's I think we're like 14 games in, somewhere in there in the
14,
NHL.
15, 16, and 17. All teams have played 15, at least 15. Other teams have played 17. I think the biggest news is Evander Kane. Who wants to elaborate on Evander Kane?
You brought it up. Set it out, big mouth.
Yeah, set up the story with Evander Kane.
Evander Kane owes a casino in Las Vegas some money, $500,000. Just pocket change. I think
Uber money.
A couple of guys here, we were talking before we went live on this podcast that how in the fuck do you owe? I mean, Evander Kane's getting paid. I don't know his salary. Someone can look that up, but he's getting paid. So, I mean, and he's been in the league a couple of years. Hopefully, he's got to have some money in the bank, right? So, who knows? Did he go out there and get wasted? And I'm Evander Kane. He's been there numerous times. Give me $500,000. I'll get you guys back Tuesday. My mom's there or something. Wasted. And he just hasn't gotten the money to him, but I think being the casino.
Just ask the Ottawa Senators owner about that.
Yeah, we can.
He's got some time.
We'll get the Ottawa Senators owner on, see if he can explain it. But I'm sure the casino has a lot of people that high rollers that come in day after day that live in Vegas that do this for a living, that front money to them. But to the point where they take you to court, it's got to be a while. And I don't think there's anything out there on social media or in the public of how long it's been. But still, Evander Kane. That's fun.
I feel it's almost like I've been on the other side of this very small scale where you're out with your buddies and like, hey, can I borrow $100? And you're like, yeah, just give me back tomorrow. And then you never see the guy. It's like,
what the fuck, man?
Like, I knew I shouldn't have gave that guy any money, but I don't know. I feel like he's out there getting wasted, and it's just like, all right, I think I'm going to spend like $500,000 tonight. Fuck it. I mean, that is a lot of money to an NHL guy. We talked about it. I mean, I don't care if you're making, $5 million a year, or $6 million a year. Still, it's $500,000. Like that. You don't get your full salary. They don't give you, if you're $9 million, the fees and stuff that the NHL takes, plus all the taxes the government takes. that's still a lot of money for an
What
NHL
kind
guy.
of tips do you get for that? You know, I'm used to going to the casino and cashing in $100 and getting dollar chips, couple $5 chips.
$1 bill,
I get
yo.
420 chips. Those are high rollers. But what's
Nickel
this fucker
slots.
get? What's this fucker getting? He's getting, you know, $10,000 chips. Do they have those? I don't even know outside of my league.
Yeah, and you're like, man,
I
if I play all night, I might get a free room. What's this guy get? Like, free fucking blackjack table at the end of the night or what? Like,
Jesus, great, a whole floor.
you're just comped for the year, man. Just keep coming back because we need that money.
There was a picture on social media when Evander Kane got out of his entry-level contract. He was in Vegas. You guys might remember he had stacks of money and he was putting it up to his ear on a balcony in Vegas. We can bring that up and put it on. We can find that and we'll put it on our Twitter and social media accounts. But there was a picture of Evander Kane in Vegas after his entry-level contract. I forget what he signed for, but he had a stack of cash. And it was he held it up to his ear. And so I'm just saying that just because it tells you that. Obviously.
Well, listen, hey, maybe it explains why. Wasn't it him that was when he played the Bruins recently? That was trying to fight everybody. Chara was tangling with him a bit. He was going after McAvoy like crazy. Maybe McAvoy was chirping in his ear like, "Hey, where's the $500,000
gambling debt?
Gambling debt. There you go, Swino." But who knows? Maybe that's something to do with it. But it sounds to me like this guy. I don't know. He probably likes to have a good time, man. That's you can kind of read between the lines. He probably likes to get a little fucked up. But I don't know. Did you guys see? There was an article recently, like put out by The Athletic, I think, and it talked about how a lot of these players now, instead of like going out and having a few beers after the game, are using like Molly and ecstasy and stuff like that. So
I did see that.
You see that? So I don't know. Maybe these guys are getting whacked out and going and spending money they don't have. Who knows what the hell's going on?
Oh yeah, we've all been there. And you woke up the next day and your bank account's empty, and you're like, shit, I knew I shouldn't have spent all that money. But we only had like $10 in our account, so like it wasn't a big deal. But that's an interesting story. We'll see how that develops.
No doubt.
Definitely interesting. We'll see what happens with him and Ryan Reeves next time they meet up too. But I'm going to get into a little bit of what's going on in Florida. Two teams that we expected the Lightning to be a lot better than they are. Being in the middle of the pack, not winning games like they have been. Kucherov only has 4 goals. I think last year, he was just scoring a goal a game. So to be 15, 16 games in, 4 goals, struggling. Vasilevsky's had subpar nights. His average, his save percent average is down this year. Just a surprise for me to watch these games, because if you look at their roster on paper, they're nasty, right? So it just seems like, why aren't they scoring? Why aren't they winning games? They couldn't lose last year. They were just on fire. Nothing's really changed. They didn't really make any moves in the offseason. We talked about it. They should have been really good this year. And it's just not there. So that's
I sent a text out. Sorry to interrupt, but I sent a text out. Is it even, should we even consider Tampa as one of the top teams in the NHL anymore?
I think you do. I think kind of what's happening with them is I think there's a bit of a hangover from last year. I think they had such high expectations last year, and then to get bounced so quickly out of the playoffs.
So hard,
yeah, they felt, they were so high and then fell so hard. I think there's a bit of a hangover. I personally think that Tampa will end up turning this thing around. They have too good of players, too good of coaching. It's so early in the season. I think they've played some tough teams early too. The schedule hasn't been a cakewalk early. I think some of what you're seeing though is kind of like a hangover from last year, and kind of that disappointment kind of still lingering on a bit. And I think once that team gels a little bit, gets a few wins under their belt and gets rolling, I think they'll turn it around. I think that you can still legit consider them like a contender at the end of the day for sure.
Yeah, and they're over in the Global Series. We got the Global Series coming up this weekend in Sweden. It's the Sabres. Just not that Tampa's there, but that's where.
Tampa's there.
Tampa's there. Hedman's the only guy from the team. It's
That's Swedish, yeah.
Sabres
So,
and Tampa, so they're over
yeah, so
there.
to touch on that just quickly, Pat, yeah, they're playing the Bruins on Friday and Saturday night. The Sabres this Friday, Saturday night, and they're in Sweden right now. And Hedman's been injured, and he had his first day back today skating. So they interviewed him, and he's kind of saying that he thinks I can't see him not playing. He's in his home country. When the hell is he going to get to play an NHL game there again? Probably never. And so I see him coming back for that game on Friday with the Sabres. That's the global initiative that the NHL is doing, is something that they've been doing for a few years now, where they've been playing games in Europe and trying to develop that NHL brand in other countries. They talked to the GM and the owners of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and one of the big things that they've been doing is building their brand across the United States too, and they've been able to sell their merchandise instead of just in Florida and Tampa area. They've been able, actually, because they've been so good, they've expanded it throughout the whole country, and they've made big strides in developing their brand. And now they're trying to develop it. Same thing over in Sweden. And it's just like anything else. At the beginning of the season, they start a game over in China or wherever
basketball.
it is.
Yeah.
So
and football is doing that in London, right? So I just had a quick question off the topic, a tangent going on here. Do you guys? I know the NFL is always playing football over there in London, wherever, and they talked about getting teams over there, which is just almost impossible with the travel. But can you guys see maybe NHL team over in Europe? I mean, last year there's 95 Sweden-born players in the NHL, big hockey market. Could the NHL get 3 teams over there, and maybe the Bruins, the Rangers, and the Devils per se go over there and stay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and play those teams and then go back? I know they've talked about this in the NFL, getting one team, but I just don't think one team would do it. Why would a team go over there, travel that flight, and play one game and then go back? And usually you have a bye week. But do you guys think in the NFL or the NHL that you will ever see expansion over there?
I think Derek probably knows better than I, but I'm pretty sure it came out this week that San Diego's thinking about going to London because the LA thing's not working out. Did you hear that, Derek?
Yeah, I did. The owner of the Chargers shot that down pretty quick, though.
Yeah, I heard his comment on that.
Yeah, said it was bullshit, basically. But
okay, yeah, I didn't. I just heard it.
I don't see how it. No, you're right, Mark, though, because there was a lot of talk about that, but I don't see how it's feasible. I really don't. I mean, how do you make one team, for every away game have to travel, 8, 9 hours? You know what I mean? How do you do that? I mean, it's such an unfair advantage to the team that they're going to play. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. I've thought about this, and you can relate it to hockey too. I mean, you would almost have to like in the end, the only way I can see it working in the NFL is like you create like another like entire division.
Yeah.
And then that division, like that division just like plays over in London. These 2 divisions play over here in the US, and then like maybe at the end, like some kind of playoff format happens at the end of the year where you bring the top teams from London over here or whatever. I don't know. I can't even in my head wrap around how it would work.
Yeah, you would have to go over there and stay for 3 weeks. Right?
Yeah.
I think personally they need 1 or 2 teams. That's not going to happen in the NFL, but I think it's possible in the NHL to get a couple teams in Sweden and maybe some couple other countries around there. And a team like the Rangers will go over there. The flight from New York to San Jose, from New York to London or Sweden's the same, but the hour is different. It's 4 hours to the West Coast, but over there it's like 8 hours. So that kind of screws you up a little bit. But
3 and 6, but
3 and 6. So you'd have to go over there for a couple weeks. But I think there's more potential for the NHL to do that.
Yeah, the way I see it right now, I think there's more potential for them to pick up U.S. markets and maybe Quebec. There's a bunch of cities that don't have hockey in the United States. I don't think there's, if you look at maybe a southern team, say, New Orleans or, maybe in Wisconsin, Green Bay or Madison, Wisconsin or Michigan, some of these cities that don't have teams, right? So, there's probably more room in the United States. I do think it's logistically tough to go to Europe and keep the league travel wise feasible. But Pat, with the way you're saying, the NHL probably looks at it. We're gonna pick up a whole new market, right? So we're gonna have TV rights in Europe. We're gonna have merchandise in Europe. We're gonna have all this bullshit bringing money to the NHL from overseas, right? Well, if you stay in the United States or add a team in Canada or in like Seattle coming in, they still have a little bit more of a market, but they don't have that international market. So I think, in my opinion, I think it'll come down to whether the NHL gets greedy and wants to make more money, and I think that's why they're going over there now. They want to pick up more viewers from over there.
And you hit the nail right on the head, Mark. Why are we even going over there, NFL, NHL? Because obviously they're making money, right? Yeah. Their sales are good over there, so they're going over there to make it even better. But we can banter this topic all night long. But.
Yeah, so I'll just touch on before we get off to somebody else's conference or teams that we're going to talk about tonight. I'll talk about the Panthers because they have been a little bit of a surprise. Maybe not to our podcast, but to maybe some of the other people that are watching the NHL this year, because we had talked about the Panthers having a decent team, new coach, and Huberdeau has had an awesome season so far for them. Their assistant captain, he's at 9 goals, and I think he's got like 18 points. He's got 18 points. Barkov's got 17 points. Ekblad, Yandel Melgen. Connolly's actually, been playing well. I don't know if you saw him. He had a nice goal the other night. But Huberdeau and Barkov have been stellar for them. 18, 17 points. They both play on the same line. And I was watching them. They beat Detroit 4-0 the other night. Bernier was actually playing pretty well, even though he let 4 in. And then Burakovsky, I didn't say that correctly, but he had a shutout. He's been playing. Actually, it's probably not his best year as far as his numbers and save percentage wise, but he has been playing fairly decent for them. So I think with a new coach, some new players, and some players that are hot, we might see some good things about the Panthers actually being able to bump up a little bit in the standings, and we haven't seen them really do shit in the last couple of years. So they might be a surprise, but I think the biggest surprise is the team that Derek's going to talk about here shortly.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that a little bit more, they got Trocheck, Ekblad, Yandel, Bobrovsky, like you said, Barkov. Then they got the Hall of Fame coach down there. So making a little noise. Quenneville, yep.
Yeah. No, they're a good team, man. I listened to a little segment they had on NHL Network the other day with Huberdeau in there, and he was, he's basically saying that they're a team that has like no fear of playing any team in the league. They feel like any team they go out and play against, they can beat them. And when you have that mentality, that's probably, it's probably system mentality too, handed down from Quenneville a bit too, where his professional arrogance probably has worn down to his players. They feel like they're unstoppable. But you got a lot of pieces there, man. And then you got Bobrovsky in that he's top level, one of the top goaltenders in the league. So yeah, he's gonna keep you in every game. So Florida Panthers, man, it's not an awesome market for hockey. More people would rather be sitting on the beach than in the rink, but they got a hell of a team down there, and if they build it, people will start coming for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Playoff times for sure.
Yeah, just a better parity in the league too. Like you look at a team like Florida, they need the fan base. They struggle to put people in the seats, and then but they're playing well. They're probably getting more people in the seats now. Then you're going to take a team like Detroit, and it's supposed to be this powerhouse. Like they've got the nicest arena probably in the league, and they can't win to save their life, right? So they've been struggling. So you expect some of these powerhouses just to be good every year, but it's not happening. You're getting teams that are in other smaller markets actually competing, which is good. That's good for the NHL that there's parity in the league.
Yeah, and
Detroit,
speaking of
Detroit
that,
in transition big time though. I mean,
they're rebuilding.
Yzerman came in there, man. That team's at least a year away from, and I think most of the league understands that. Yeah, a year or two, so got to give them time. But go ahead, Pat.
I was just gonna say, speaking of parity, I mean, the Islanders.
Ooh.
Are they on
Yeah,
fire?
get into that, Derek. Talk a little bit about the Islanders and the Rangers and.
Well, listen, I mean, when it comes to the Islanders, their goaltenders, their two goaltenders have the highest save percentage in the league. Okay, so you start with that right there. But they're a team, that, in my opinion, they're kind of a surprise. They were good last year, though. But in my opinion, they're a team that is completely bought into their system, right? So they have completely bought into the coach's system. It's it's a handful of decent players, but I think what it boils down to the Islanders is just they're a system team that has bought in completely, and they're not intimidated by any team that they're going to see. So they're pretty fun to watch. I think I'm not sure what their record is exactly right now, but at one point last week I thought it was like 11-1 or something like that. So
yeah, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And
it won like 10 in a row.
Yeah. And I think last year, Derek might even mentioned it, that was the last team, if he was behind the bench as a coach, that he'd want to face, just because, they're unpredictable. But on to elaborate what you were just saying, Derek, that, the head coach came into the Islanders, Trotz, right? Not
Trotz.
Very Trotz.
Yeah. Yep. And so there's a lot of players that are back from last year. So they know the system. They know what Barry wants. So it's a little bit easier that first year when you get a new coach and they implement a new system, you might get confused. It's almost like football, right? You get a new coach in there, offensive coordinator. That's totally different from what you're used to. It takes a little while. And if he's there for a couple of years and the players are there, the same players are there for a couple of years, it takes a while to, just kind of, produce. And I think that's the Islanders right now. And I think they had Barzell on the NHL Network the other day, who pretty much said that verbatim, that our first year he came in and put in all these changes and we were kind of learning, but now we have pretty much everyone back and we know what he expects, we know what he wants.
Yeah,
and we can do it.
They got a guy too. I mean, look at Broussard, the way he's playing for the Islanders. That guy, I don't know, I never really understood why. Like he seemed to bounce around the league quite a bit and never be able to find like a permanent home. But he's a hell of a player, man. He's producing with those guys. I think over the last 5 games, I think Broussard's got 4 goals. And they got Anders Lee. They got a squad that's got some good guys on there. It's more of like it's no huge standout all-stars on that team. It's just like a group of guys that is just, I keep saying it, it's a group of guys that has bought into a system and they're just kind of tearing it up based on that system that they're playing. So they're a gritty team that you don't want to play against. And then on the flip side, if you want to talk about the Rangers, they're kind of,
just to put it in there real quick, I got it at the game on, just ended 5-1. They just beat the Red Wings. So.
Yeah, they stumbled a bit when they played Ottawa, but before that, I think they beat the Lightning and the Predators, right? They pulled off a couple of really big wins. Got some big wins, man, and they're a young team that is still developing. Cheitel, they brought Cheitel back up. He contributed right away. I think he popped in a couple of goals in his first couple of games back. Capo Caco, man, he's got, I think, 3 goals over the last few games too. They're a young squad, man. They're a young squad that, the goaltending, Georgiev has played pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's played well. His save percentage is like his goals against are like 2.5, and Lundqvist is like 4 goals a game he's letting in. I think the problem with Lundqvist, though, is he's used to being the big dog. He's used to playing all the time, getting all the starts, and he's only playing like 50% of the games right now. But when you look at the Rangers, they're a young team. I think as the year goes on, if they can start stringing together, some more of these wins, they're a team that could catch fire, I think. And kind of surprise some people. It's Quinter's doing some stuff. You can see when, like, during his press conferences, it seems like he's got a little bit of I don't know. He's almost like a little bit ticked off when you hear him, like when they lose a game. He basically kind of not throwing his players under the bus, but he's talking about how they're not kind of buying into the system as well as they could, things like that. But they're a young team on the flip side of the Islanders that I think they're going to surprise some people. Honestly, I think they're about 500 right now as far as their record goes, but I think you're going to see some good things from the Rangers as the season goes on.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Just to touch on the Rangers, I think one of their biggest problems, or not really a problem, but the biggest thing that they're going to face is that league that they're in.
Yeah.
It's just like we talked about, the Lightning's not playing that great right now, but they're a good team, right? And they got to face them, and they got to face the Bruins and the Maple Leafs, and there's a lot of powerhouses in that league. So if you're not like one of these powerhouses and you're kind of the rebuild team that's trying to scrap by and get wins, it's tough. It's probably one of the hardest divisions to well, the Central's pretty good too, but I just see it. They got a lot of good teams, and they're beating them though. I mean, if you look at their last 5 games, they've won 3 out of 5, I believe, against top teams in that division. So, they're doing it, and it's just a long season to keep beating those teams. So we'll see how they can fare throughout the season, and if they can keep getting those W's against some of these big time squads.
Yeah, Lundqvist had to start tonight too, right? So and they had a 5-1 win. So that's good. That's a good start for Lundqvist.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know who the goalie was for the
Quinter didn't really have too much expectations going in. It was a rebuild mode, so he's kind of able to sit back, know that he's not going to get fired anytime soon. And like Derek said, that in a couple years they're going to be good. They're good right now. Good team. They got Adam Fox on there. Fox, who the Fox?
Who the Fox at?
But the Central, what I've been keeping an eye on, Dallas is on fire right now. Finally, I mean, at the beginning of the season, I think I said that Dallas, we're still early. We got most teams 15, 16, 17 games, like I said earlier. But Dallas is finally on fire. They won 4 in a row, 7 of their last 8. And after a surprising start of 1-7, which is surprising. But Colorado's got a couple injuries. Ratanen's still hurt. They lost a few games, but they lost to Minnesota, 2 games to Minnesota, which I don't know if you can even count that as a game. But Chicago and the Minnesota Wild in the Central Division, I think you'll see them down there. They're pretty brutal, pretty much playing in the sandbox. They're boring. But St. Louis is up on top. I don't think you'll see St. Louis up there too much. Again, they played Minnesota the last couple of their games ago. They played Minnesota, beat them twice. But Nashville's up there. I think Nashville's goals against average is unreal. So they got some firepower.
Averaging 4 goals a game.
Yeah.
Plus 17.
Yeah, so I don't think you'll see much change up there. It's going to be the Blues, Predators, or the Avalanche flip-flopping all through the season. Still early. I still predict the Avalanche are going to come on top once they're healthy.
Yeah, the Blues are up on the Oilers right now, 3-1 in the third. Blues have been playing good hockey. I just watched them play the Wild twice last week. The Wild actually I've never seen this before, but they had 3 goals in that game put in off of their own players. I think one was Greenway, and 2 off the defenseman, right? So they scored 3 goals on themselves. Just to talk about Minnesota real quick, it's, they've been struggling, but they haven't really been getting blown out. They've been in the games, they've been struggling on scoring. But what we've been seeing the last couple of weeks is they've actually got that figured out a little bit, and they're getting goals from Stahl and Zuccarello. Fiala had a goal last night. So some of these guys are popping their cherries, and you might see some, might see some confidence. I really like that Stahl-Zuccarello line. Stahl-Zuccarello-Zucker line has been playing great. Yeah. And then they put Foligno, Greenway, and Eriksson Ek, which is 3 big guys on the same line. which we talk about. We think is
Scrappy line, yeah.
kind of scrappy, but they've actually been producing. They didn't have any.
Foligno got a goal, right?
Foligno had a goal, but Greenway had a bunch of chances last night. Been playing really well for them in the corners and getting the puck, and he's starting to shoot the puck more, which I like to see from him. He's a kid that likes to feed the puck a lot, and especially out to the point. So they even mentioned it during the game that if we can get him to shoot the puck a little bit more when he comes out of the corner instead of dishing it to the point. But he's got a great playmaking, eye.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It just comes down to numbers. If you take 2,000 shots, you're going to get 50 goals probably. If you take 100 shots in the NHL, you're going to get 10 goals. But the Minnesota Wild, they've been on the road. I want to say they've got 15 games under their belt, and they've been on the road for 12 or 13. So
Stalock's been playing well too in net for them. Dubes
has,
in my opinion, Dubes has been shaky. They've been going with him, but they started to switch back to Stalock. Stalock's a goalie that's out of the net a lot and plays the puck a lot and feeds it up to the defenseman, setting it up for him. Does a lot of the stuff outside of the net as well. And he played well last night in their win against Anaheim. Then they got the Sharks tomorrow night at 10:30. So we'll see how they do in their West Coast run. I did see that they, at the beginning of the season, I thought there was no hope for them. But actually, in the last couple of weeks, they've actually been playing some decent hockey. It's starting to put the puck in the net, because you can't win a game. You can't win games when you're only scoring 1 goal a game. Now they're scoring 2, 3 goals a game. That's what you need to win in this new NHL.
Well, they average the Wild average like 4 goals a game at home, and they only average like a goal a game on the road. So they're they got to get that figured out. But back to the Blues real quick. You got to give them a lot of credit for doing what they're doing without Tarasenko too. So I mean that's pretty big to have him still be on top without Tarasenko. So
and Bruce even said that. He said, in today's NHL, you cannot win an NHL game with 3 goals. You need 5 or 6 goals, because that's the way it's come down. Just getting those dirty goals in front of the net, rebounds or poking at the goalie, which majority of the Wild's goals come from. You just can't win that way. You need some top scorers. You need to shoot the puck. You need quality shots.
Yeah, and last night you saw the Greenway feed Dumba. He hit the pipe. It's good play. And one of the things I don't see the Wild doing this year that they've had in the past is they've had a lot more production from the defensemen in the past years. Where this year they have. Yeah, Hunt has a good season going as far as points goes. He's leading their defensive core in points right now. But Dumbo, before he got hurt last year, was one of the leading scorers for defensemen in the league. Spurgeon had a bunch of goals. I think you need to get a little bit more production out of some of those Sutter. Get some more points from those defensemen to help out some of the forwards on the scoring front. And then you got guys like Donato hasn't scored. You need that kid scoring. He's shooting the puck, but he's not shooting it well. He shoots often, but he's not playing like he did last year.
I gotta say, I think it's because he's been getting some healthy scratches. To me, that was never helpful. I never found that helpful at all. I mean, some people think that's motivation. Bullshit.
Yeah, and then you got a guy like
a lot of money.
You got a guy like their captain Koivu. He's one of the best face-off guys out there, but they need more production out of him, right? He's your captain. He needs to score. I don't think he's had a goal yet this year. So you got these guys that should be producing for you. Like Greenway been doing great in the corners. They've been talking him up like he still needs to pop his cherry. They need to start getting some goals from these guys that they expect to score. You can't rely on Stahl, Zuccarello, Parise. He had an open netter last night. I mean, that doesn't count. You need some production.
It's frustrating. We can pick the meat off of this carcass all day long. It's frustrating. They need to get their shit straight out there.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, they've struggled big time this year. Pat says they're probably going to be in the cellar, but I do see, by watching a lot of minutes. They have played a lot better lately, and they have got a lot more production out of their forwards. Defensively, they're fine. Like they usually hold a team to a couple goals, right? But they can't win these games by only scoring one goal. So we'll see what happens there. Robbie, let's move out into the Pacific really quick. Talk about that division before we wrap it up.
Pacific's pretty easy right now. The two hot teams that I can see are Edmonton and Vancouver. Edmonton, I think we talked about it before. We get so caught up talking about McDavid all the time. Draisaitl gets overlooked. Neal has 11 goals in 16 games already. When they picked up Neal, I remember everybody going, why are they picking him up? Right? So, he's still got plenty of gas in the tank, it looks like.
Good goaltending out there too, Mike Smith.
Yeah, he's playing well. Nugent Hopkins, he's got some assists. He's got one goal right now. So, I think after this is what happened last year is you had three guys that produced and everybody else was, next to nothing. So what I'm looking for out of Edmonton, if they're going to go into the playoffs, they're going to have more than Draisaitl, McDavid, and Neal, putting points in the back of the net.
Yeah, and they have a nasty power play with those guys. With McDavid and Draisaitl. I don't know if you've caught some of their power plays, but those two guys are nasty. I don't think Draisaitl gets enough credit sometimes of how good he really is. I mean, people know he's good, but because McDavid's on the team, he'd be the number one on a lot of teams. So he's a stud. He's been producing. Neal, having a stellar year for them. That's huge for Edmonton. I just think that team's finally kind of getting in their groove after, years and years of struggle in Edmonton, and we might see good things out of them this year if they keep up the way they're playing now and producing up front. I think we're going to see them, in the playoffs this year, which would be cool because we haven't seen Edmonton, in the playoffs in a while, and it'd be nice to, obviously it's an iconic team in the league, and obviously going back to the Gretzky years, it would be kind of cool to see McDavid, starting that new era of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah. And James Neal, I'm sure you guys elaborated on that a little bit, but this is what we were supposed to be talking about with Edmonton. Edmonton's supposed to be a good team, and finally they got a new coach, and maybe this is the year to that Edmonton starts turning it around. I mean, on paper, we can just talk about that all night, and
I think that's fair.
Glad
You're
to see
right.
it.
Sorry, I think that's fair, and you're right. But what I see with Edmonton only having three guys taking up all those points is they're going to be a Tampa Bay Lightning. They might make playoffs, but they're going to get bumped. You cannot do it with just McDavid or even Draisaitl.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and Derek, you touched on Vancouver a little bit, and if there was a team out there that I kind of never watch, it's Vancouver. I don't know why, but it seems like any game I watch, it's never a Vancouver game. So I don't know much about it except for some highlights. But Derek, I know you touched on it a little bit. You want to maybe just talk about Pettersson and what's going on.
Oh yeah, Pettersson had 9 points last week. I mean, the guy is, he's small of frame. He's kind of like a Gretzky kind of build guy, but all that guy does is put fucking pucks in the back of the net, man. It's crazy. I think the Western Conference is fucking stacked, man. You look at teams that, you look at the Eastern Conference, there's kind of there's obviously a good handful of teams that are pretty good, but there's a lot of good fucking teams in the Western Conference. It's like, between Nashville, Arizona, Vancouver, Colorado,
Calgary,
Las Vegas, Calgary. Those teams they're playing like a different, almost like a different style of hockey out there. Even it's like you're seeing goals get scored out there, at like, teams in. It's crazy. I don't know. That conference is stacked.
Even Anaheim. We haven't touched on Anaheim. Anaheim's been playing really well.
Yeah, former coach Edmonton's coaching Anaheim. But yeah, I mean, that's good for hockey, right? Those West Coast teams. You talk about the original hockey teams, the original six up there, New England, Canada, where we're from. But the West Coast teams are stacked, and that almost goes to, I always, think when somebody says that the West Coast teams are stacked, like some of these hockey players want to go out there where it's warm weather and um, they're filling the stands. The Kings, they fill up. San Jose fills up. Arizona, we could talk about Arizona, Phil Kessel, what they're doing out there with their head coach. But Carolina Hurricanes, we talked about the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay, they got players. So a lot of these teams, I think the veterans like to migrate south or to warmer weather.
Yeah, they're not going to Winnipeg. Hey, what happened? What happened with Bufflin? Yeah, well, what's up with that?
Tweet out, Rob, on that when it first happened, and we got so much negative feedback that Bufflin wanted out of Winnipeg, and do we tweet that those two guys?
There's always the last that shows up to the table. Boys.
We need to retweet that fucker out there and make some comments.
So Bufflin is suing the NHL for his money, or suing Winnipeg for his money. $14 million, I want to say, give or take a few million. He's got an ankle injury. He's having ankle surgery, and he's saying because the NHL is fighting it because he signed the contract before the NHL season saying that he was healthy, that he was, I will be with you guys for the 2019-20 season. Signed the contract. I'm healthy. I'm ready to go. So signing that contract, I mean, you're saying it's like signing any other work contract that you're willing to play this year. And he didn't show up to training camp. And now he's saying it was because of an ankle injury and having surgery. So now he's suing, wanting his money. So that's going to be a lot of talk here in the next year or two.
Yeah.
He gets his money.
Bunch of bullshit. He needs to show up to camp. It's like, what are you doing, man? You're at the end of your career.
Fucking Winnipeg. Yeah. And you're right, Mark. I mean, when he turns 40 and he looks back at this, and if he loses his money, he'll be like, "What the fuck was I thinking, man? $14 million. It should have just fucking played. I didn't even have to go 100%. I just could have went out there and fucking dumped it in, dump and chase. Fuck it."
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about Winnipeg much, but they're actually playing pretty well too. I don't know what their record is, but I have seen they had a decent start to the season. Without him, they made some key signings right at the beginning of the season to get back some of their studs and keep some of that team together. There was a lot of talk that those guys were going to go. They didn't want to be there, and Line A, a couple other guys. So I mean, they did end up signing and getting everybody back except for Bufflin. So I mean, if they did have Bufflin, that'd be a different team because he is a difference maker on the blue line. And I would, I look at it and I say, man, you're making $14 million a year. Go fucking play. Don't be a cry ass just because you don't like the weather or whatever it is. Go fucking play hockey, man. You're getting paid more money than anybody's going to get paid to fucking play a game you love. Just don't be a cry ass. It's just like anybody, any sport. If you don't want to play for that team, too fucking bad. This is professional sports. They signed you to play. If you don't perform, they're going to trade you, or you can ask to be traded, but don't show up. It's like not going to work because you don't fucking feel like it, right? So I just
cold. I'm not going to work.
I don't agree with what he did. I think he left his teammates hanging. You don't do that to your teammates. They're there to win. They want to win games. You're part of that team. You don't leave them hanging out to dry. So I'm not a big fan of what he did there, and I'd like to see him, if he's really got an ankle problem, why is it coming out now, or did he fucking trip and fall on his fishing boat in Minnesota? So
he signed a contract that he was healthy, so I think you'll see him back towards playoffs. They'll probably negotiate something, come back, tomorrow. We'll give you half your salary, and he's watching hockey right now saying, fucking A, what am I doing? He might be thinking that. I'm just assuming that, but I think
he's thinking he wants to get out of Winnipeg.
I think he wants to get out of Winnipeg, yeah. But
yeah, I mean, we saw that.
What do you guys think? I mean, real quick, I mean, don't you think, like, if you had to pick a division that is like the best division in the NHL right now. I think the Pacific has the most talent, honestly. I really do.
Yeah, that's where they all
Yeah,
are, Carlson.
if you take the division as a whole, I can see that. If you pick and choose teams, I mean, can you take the Bruins and the Leafs out of that category, but as far as actually a division with every team being pretty solid, you're seeing a lot of good hockey out west.
In the Pacific, you got Edmonton, Vancouver, Arizona, Vegas, Calgary, Anaheim, San Jose. I mean, San Jose is underperforming big time, but I mean, you take the top
No,
6 teams.
no slouches.
Yeah, I mean, you take the top 6 teams in that division. That's a stacked division. You talk about the Bruins. We got to talk about the Bruins a little bit before we go. They probably got. Yeah, I mean, the Bruins have. I said this in a text with you guys a couple of days ago. I think they have the best line in the NHL. I heard they got great goaltending too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I heard a guy on NHL Network the other day. I'm not sure who he was. He was an analyst, so-called analyst on there, and he was saying, I don't see how the Bruins can make it anywhere in the playoffs when they only have one solid line contributing. And I thought to myself, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? But I mean, that line, I mean, that one line, they stay healthy. I mean, they can carry that team wherever the hell they want to go. I mean, frankly, there's no line like that in the league, I don't think. You can talk about Toronto probably with a line that probably has the names that add up to that line, but they're not producing like them. I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
I think the comparison is going to be Edmonton, right? And Draisaitl and McDavid.
Yeah.
Could be, because, yeah. But in my opinion, Boston's got the best. That's the best line in hockey by far.
I watched them play Pittsburgh the other night. Great game. Boston came back and beat Pittsburgh, but I think I sent a text out too to you guys that us watching the Minnesota Wild all the time. It's kind of boring.
Stop watching hockey because of it.
Yeah, start watching some basketball. It's that boring. But when I watch the Bruins play Pittsburgh, holy fuck, man, action packed.
That's hot.
Yeah.
And who would say that the one line can't take them? They've been last year. They went deep. They got the best one of the best goalies in the league. They got the best fucking defenseman core. Torrey Krug, Chara. Krug's fucking just lighting it up on the power play. Charlie McAvoy, Grizzlick. I mean, Bruins are nasty.
And with the Bruins, when they went to the playoffs last year, a lot of their production came from their fourth line. So, I mean, if you didn't watch the playoffs last year, then maybe you missed it. That they obviously they coined the perfection line. I think it was Ron McLean or Don Cherry or somebody coined it the perfection line for the Bruins.
Line,
and you know who led that is Coyle, right? Minnesota got rid of him.
Yeah, and Kelsey or what's his name, also on the fourth line there. But so if you can't say they don't have more than one line, because when they were in the playoffs last year, their fourth line was winning game sevens for them. So, I don't agree with that either, Derek. Good point there. It's just, I think that's kind of bullshit.
I think that like on some of these networks now, they just put people out there to say stupid shit to get attention. You know what I mean? I mean, that's completely like, if you're paying attention to the Bruins at all, you can't look at them and say, oh, this is the only line contributing. And if they only have this line contributing, they're not going to make it anywhere. I mean, the Bruins are like, maybe some of their third, fourth lines aren't contributing yet. You know what I mean? As much as they should be, but they're gonna be. I mean, they're gonna be, and they're a team with tons of talent. I mean, you look at Marchand, a guy like Marchand, he gets more attention sometimes for like some of his antics and stuff like that, but he just had a 5-point game. I mean, who the hell has 5-point games in the NHL? I mean, it's the guy.
A lot of guys throwing 5 points yet.
You look at the leaders in the NHL, it's Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand, and I think goals against or whatever is fucking.
And they're all on the same fucking line.
Yeah.
And to speak about exciting games, Pete, we were watching the Sabres play the other night, and it was the same deal, man. Super exciting, fast. The power plays were awesome. I mean, tic-tac-toe power plays with, Eichel and Skinner and Reinhart and those guys. And the Sabres looked unbelievable. I couldn't believe it, because I don't watch a lot of Sabres games, but I was really impressed about how well they looked. A lot of talk out of Buffalo right now is when Bogosian, they have 2 defensemen that are hurt that are coming back really soon, but they have 6 defensemen that are playing well. So we might see some moves out of Buffalo to trade somebody when these guys come back, because they're going to have 8 defensemen that are pretty good. And, obviously they can't use them all. So who's going to go? Who's going to stay? Is Bogosian going to make the lineup? Are they going to stay with who they've been, going with for the first 15, 16 games? So I think that's like the biggest, what if in Buffalo right now. A lot of talk about what's going to happen when these guys get healthy.
Yeah. Buffalo's looking good, man.
Very excited to watch. Exciting to watch. I think Hutton is, just a fun goalie to watch. Hutton is the Sabres goalie. They've got Linus in as well. What's his name? Linus Olmark, who is also very good. But I'm excited to see Hutton in that there.
I can't remember who they were playing. I remember we were texting back and forth in that Sabres game, but it was just like you said. Some of these games you watch, they're just dumping, chase, grinding in the corners. A couple shots here and there, but these were like chances after chances, and the goalies had to make big saves, and it was like every other shift there was like a major chance to score. So it was like
was
something.
That the game they went into overtime, and we were texting back and forth, and they hit 2 posts away. They were solid posts.
Yeah, and I think it was it might have been an OT shootout game, that game. But that we could talk a little bit if you want about the 3-on-3 overtime. We talked about it over and over.
All night. Let me go.
Is this really hockey? 5 minutes to 3-on-3, that's deciding these games. They're both getting a point. Like, here you go, you played a good game, we'll give you a point. Like, is that fair?
To me, it's just the NHL giving it to non-hockey players to make it more exciting, right? Us as hockey players don't like to see that. Grind it out, play the fucking game, and if you whoever puts the puck in the net wins. But I think the NHL is going to, I think, who did we have on? I think it was Carrie Fraser said that they moved to that, this style of overtime just because they were going into TV programs, the next TV programs, because it was third overtime. We're talking 3 hours NHL. So the programs were getting pissed, and so they had to do something. But to me, the NHL did this for non-hockey players, right? To make it more exciting.
I agree with you.
And it used to be 4-on-4, but that wasn't good enough, right? Scoring fast enough. 3-on-3, if you watch it, it's all about puck possession, right? So they're skating the puck out of the zone to keep possession, and then they're going back in the zone. I mean, if they've figured it out. The guys have figured out. They figured out 4-on-4. Once they figured out 4-on-4, it went to 3-on-3. Now they're figuring that out, and they're figuring out whoever has the puck the most is probably going to win. So you'll see them, if they don't have a good chance, they'll pull it back all the way out to the red line and go back in.
If you win that initial face-off on 3-on-3 overtime, there's a good chance you're going to win the game.
Yeah, kind of like football if you win the coin flip, right? So I don't agree with it. I'm with you on that, Pat. It is exciting. There's a shootout because there's only 5 minutes, and a lot of times they don't score, so you get to shootout. But the shootouts aren't as you see them so often now. It's not like it used to be. Like, oh man, a shootout! I got to check this out. Yeah. It's like you see them every week.
I mean, an NHL rink is 200 feet long, 85 feet wide, right? So, and then you got 6 players on the ice. I mean, come on. I mean, that's too much room. It's too easy. It's too easy to move the puck. I mean, that's not hockey. I completely agree with you, Pat. I think they did that as a pawn for like a bunch of dweebs out there that they're trying to get to watch hockey that don't know much about it. And I completely agree with you.
It's the same thing with the penalties. I'm so fed up with the penalties. I mean, being a gritty hockey player, I can't stand the bullshit if your fucking stick gets touched on the skate and the guy falls down and it's, not intentional tripping right away.
what about the Minnesota call, Mark, on the interference, Zach Parise in front of the net? So if what is the fucking rule, right? So is anything if my jersey fucking touches a goalie on a goal in front of the net, is that interference? I mean, there's got to be a set rule that if the offensive player is touching the defensive goalie, it's got to be goalie interference, right? Because that's what it was. Yeah, his helmet turned a little bit, but that didn't.
He wasn't in the crease though, so
it wasn't in the crease.
He wasn't in the crease, so how he's standing with his back to the goalie. He's not in the crease. The goalie's head hits his shoulder, so it's his fault.
Goalie's head hits his shoulder. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so why is it interference if he's not in his crease, right? Get back in your fucking crease, right? So I can stand here all I want. Why is it interference?
Yeah.
That's where I took from it. I thought,
you gotta get it down, like, what is the specific rule? It's kind of vague that goalie interference is when an offensive player is interfering with the goalie. Okay, so I'm not in the crease. So for all the listeners, Parise was out of the crease, shot from the point. The goalie slid right to left, and his helmet touched Parise's right elbow. Yeah, and kind of turned his mask a little bit, but his momentum didn't stop. He kept going, and the puck went in the net. And I think we all text each other. We were like, it could go either way depending on the refs. And sure enough, there's fucking no goal. And Bruce was pissed. You know, he probably only had 9-8 whiskeys before.
He's been pissed a lot lately, man. I don't know if you watched him, though. Holy shit, doesn't even shave anymore.
They've had some bad luck.
Somebody stole his razor. He doesn't even shave anymore. He looks like he slept on a park bench. I don't even know if they let him travel with a team anymore.
Definitely has an electric razor. He does not use a straight razor.
Well, fuck, it's shaving a circle. I mean, it's like there's no like
a pumpkin.
It's not like there's any contour to the fucking face. It's just like a basketball, man. It's like, holy shit, where does chin go? But man, some of these rules and some of these penalties drive me nuts. Like Zuccarello got a penalty last night. He even like just threw his stick. Like the guy was skating over his stick. He knew he was getting a penalty. He, like, dropped his stick, put his arms up in the air. They called him for a trip, and he's like, ref, I'm trying to do everything I fucking can not to trip this guy, and you give me a tripping penalty. Yeah, it's getting kind of out of hand as far as the penalties go, and I don't get it. You know, that's a penalty, and then you see a guy cross-check a guy in front of the net, fucking drop him on his face, nothing. You see a guy in the corner, cross-check him in the back, fucking drop him in, right to the ground, nothing. Like, what is the difference between laying a guy out from behind, which happens every game, all game, or, touching his skate and he falls down? So it's just like certain things they let go, which you would think, man, that's kind of a penalty, because they defensemen are always hitting the forwards from behind and knocking them down in front of the net or in the corners. But that seems good, and it's from behind, and it's interference or whatever they're going to call. But it just, to me, there's just some things that the NHL has got so
in defense of the refs, though, when you're in the corners, like the board games. If you don't have a board game in the NHL, like playing against the boards, you're not going to win. And I think the refs know that you have to be strong against the boards, right? So if Suter gives someone, or a big defenseman, Yoshi from Nashville, gives someone a cross-check in the back, the refs kind of saying, you got to be strong. Stop being a pussy, stand up. It's a whole different ball game in front of the net when you're just standing there and you get a cross-checked out of fucking nowhere, open ice. So there's a little difference there between when you're against the boards to when you're in open ice in front of the net. That's the only thing. When you're near the boards, expect a cross-check to the back or something, because, you got to be tough there. But in front of the net, it's kind of
it happens every game, man. They don't call it. But the other thing is, as a defenseman, I was a defenseman, and, if you were a step behind your guy and he was going into the net, you could lift up his stick, and that was like basically your only fucking play. Like, to reach your stick out, get into his hands and lift his stick. And that was a defensive play, right? You cannot touch his hands at all now. So if a guy gets a step on you, you just skate behind him, and like that's your fucking defensive play. I mean, I just don't think, why can't you lift their stick up? I mean, that's part of hockey. That's how hockey has been played for years. When you're back checking, you get into their stick and you get into their hands, and that's how you fucking stop the play.
You can't even push their elbow to push their stick off the puck. That's interference now.
Yeah, so I mean,
I was back checking. If the guy was ahead of me and he was going and there's no way I could get it, I'm pushing both elbows to hopefully for him to.
Or his bottom hand.
Well, his elbows, just to kind of push his elbows, so he loses control of the puck and then I can get it. You can't even do that anymore.
And so I mean, it's like the way you have to play defense now is you're just so I don't know what the word would be, but you're just constricted of what you can actually do to play defense. If you're behind a guy, there's no play unless you can skate faster than him and get in front of him, which is impossible. So I mean, you don't have to trip a guy, but why can't you get in? I mean, why can't you lift his stick up? Why can't you get in? Getting into somebody's hands used to be a defensive play, and that was what you were taught. And that's how you played defense from behind, because if you got into his hands, you couldn't shoot and score, right? So that's, in my opinion, that's how you play defense, right? So now you have to lift the stick, not touch the hands. That's it. But I don't agree with some of these calls.
A lot of gray area, yeah.
I think they're just taking way too much away from the defenseman. Just in giving the advantage to the forwards. What kind of advantage have they given to a defenseman in the last 10 years? What have they done to help the defenseman out?
Almost all calls are, it's like you go either way. I don't know what they're going to say.
They don't want that, man. They want goals.
At the end of the day, it's about goals.
They want goals.
Right?
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm saying. As a defenseman, like, what has the league done for you? They've taken all of that, clutch and grab stuff away, and they've taken even getting into somebody's hands and lifting their stick up. So, I see the forwards are just babying them a little too much now, where you can't touch them, almost like a quarterback in football. And I just think it's bullshit. I mean, I like to see the goals. I like to see 5-4 games, but I would also like to see a guy be able to make a play on defense. So
those 5 goals.
But there's starting to get the music in my ear, guys. So it looks like the producers had enough of our banter for one night, and looks like we have to wrap it up. Anybody got any other news they want to just throw in before we wrap up the show?
Next week we got Steve Davinsky coming up, another NHL Hall of Famer, not a Hall of Famer, alumni. Played at Clarkson University. Played in the NHL for a little while, and then I know we've been saying it for a while, but we finally got Don Waddell, GM of the Carolina Hurricanes, penciled in, so that's huge. I think we might be able to get Staylock from the Minnesota Wild and maybe even Zuccarello. So got a couple good podcasts coming up, and can't wait to get some hats if someone would fucking know them.
Yep, the old branded bill hats are down at the doctor's house. So the doctor's got to get out the medicine to the boys and make sure they've got their lids to represent in their respective
brandedbills.com.
Their respective cities. So if you haven't checked out their hats, they're awesome, and you can customize your own hats, and they've done some pretty sweet ones for the Blue Liners. And check them out on YouTube. You can check out our podcast actually on YouTube and watch the video of the show now. So if you haven't done that yet, get on there and check it out. It's pretty cool to be able to watch the guys live on YouTube.
See how much Derek drinks. Drinks a lot.
And if you don't have time to watch the video and you want to listen to it in your car, you got all your podcast platforms to catch the Blue Liners. And we've got 80 episodes now. So if you missed one of our big ones like Eddie Belfour last week, make sure you get on and listen to that. Great episode. And we've got plenty more to come in the future. So always check out our Facebook, our Twitter, Instagram for all the latest stuff that's going on at the Blue Line Hockey Club. And obviously our website has all of our information there too. So check us out, like us, retweet us, all that good stuff on social media. And until next time, folks, keep your stick on the ice.
Yeah.
Will. No, doctor.
We're on Pornhub too.